meeting to order, please. Mrs. Ford, will you call the roll?
Chairman Wendell.
Here.
Vice Chairman McClendon.
Here.
Mrs. Hill.
Here.
Mrs. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Perez.
Here.
Mrs. Robinson.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Sermon.
Here.
All right, the item you have before you is selection of an interim superintendent. Do we have a motion?
Do you want a motion?
We'll have a motion before discussion, since it's a voting item.
Do you want a motion for who we want?
No, I'll explain.
Okay.
I'll explain how we're going to proceed here.
So moved.
No. We have a second?
Second.
All right, good deal. All right, I'll explain this, and then if you guys want to talk more about it or have discussion or questions, please feel free. So what you have in front of you there is a ballot with the 3 individuals who have expressed interest in the interim position. What you will do is you will mark 2 of those 3. Then Mrs. Ford or Mr. Bennett, either or, will come collect these, and they will tally the top 2 candidates, okay, of the 3, the top 2 vote getters. You then have another sheet after that, and then you will make your choice. After we narrow it down to 2 candidates, you will make your choice on that second sheet. That will also be given to Mrs. Ford and Mr. Bennett, and then they will tally those votes to determine who we vote to be the interim superintendent. Questions? The third sheet would be, if we were to come to a 4-4 tie, we will have one more opportunity to try to break that tie. So the third sheet is an if necessary ballot.
Joe,
Go ahead, Mrs. Steiner.
Yeah, just have a question. Do we need to number them like our first choice and second choice?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. You will just mark the 2 of the 3 that you prefer, and then they will tally the top 2 vote getters. So there's no ranking or ranking order. It would just be which 2 individuals get the most votes. Go ahead, Mrs. Hill.
Thanks. I don't feel comfortable voting for 2 candidates. I only have 1 candidate that I feel comfortable with.
That's
So is that okay with you if I only
That'd be
offer
fine
1
also.
vote? Okay.
Fine also. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chairman, you know, because of where we're at with, you know, the Sunshine Law, obviously we hadn't been able to talk or debate or share thoughts amongst ourselves. Is there an opportunity? I mean, I'd like to hear from my peers.
That would be the time now. That would be the time. So,
Okay.
no problem with that whatsoever, but it's an action item, so we need to get a motion and a second, just like any other action item, and then we can discuss, ask questions as much as we would like. So that's what we
would
do.
be the action item.
The
Yeah,
vote.
that's what I think we did, so we're.
So now we're in discussion and questions, that's right.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussions, questions, or thoughts?
Joe, did Joe, you want to say something, Joe? Now's the time to say it.
I want to listen. I may have something to say, but I'd like to listen. I'd like to hear from you guys. Because we obviously we can't talk outside this room. So I'd like to hear thoughts.
And let me say too, Mr. Smith, I'm glad you said that. So I don't want anyone to presume that any of this will be in secret. So Mr. Bennett and or Mrs. Ford will read aloud our votes. So as they collect the ballots, then they will say, hey, Mr. Smith voted for the 2 that you voted for. Okay, so it's not that's not done in secret, but all ballots are contributed at the same time. Go ahead, Mrs. Jones.
So, over the weekend, I had some time to really sit and process what we're about to engage upon. And having been participatory in this process before, and knowing what I know about where we are as a district now, in a system now, this is no easy feat. But what I do know is that I cannot, and I'm only speaking for Caritza and for District 5, because right now my vote is for everybody, but I represent District 5. But what I do know is that we have come a long way, and that was under the leadership of a great leader who surrounded himself with great people who strategically did the work to make Hamilton County Schools what we're looking at today. And we worked with him on a strategic plan to get there as well. And I know one part of our strategic plan talks about great teachers, great leaders. And so what I know about Dr. Johnson, and even though he is on his trajectory and his new journey will begin on August the 18th, what I know about him is that he is a man of strategy and he thinks things through, and he's a coach. I think he has that mindset. He uses it a lot. And so I believe that he placed people in certain positions. We have 3 candidates that have expressed interest, and it's nothing against any of these candidates that have expressed interest, because I do believe, looking at their resumes and knowing what I know about them, that they all could lead our district in an interim position. However, I do know that in reflecting back on where we've gotten in Dr. Johnson and how he's placed people, we have 3 candidates in 3 various administrative roles in our district where Dr. Johnson felt like they were best suited. And I cannot overlook the fact that we have a candidate who was second in charge. She was second in charge. And I want to make sure that we understand what that looks like. And so I can't, and I've muddled this because I know all of these candidates, but I just cannot overlook that decision and why that was the case, and from my observations of that work. And so, Joe, since you wanted to know what we all thought, that's where I am. I do believe that we have a person who, clearly all 3 of them who showed interest don't want the position, right? Because that's part of the understanding that we placed out there. But I do think that we have someone that was second in leadership, and I don't want to overlook that, because I feel like she was placed in second in leadership for a reason. And I feel like she has worked alongside him and done the work and understands it. And I think that she's more than capable of doing this in the interim. I do. And so that's my thought process. And like I said, it's nothing against the other 2 candidates, because I think they have good administrative abilities as well, and I've seen them work. Especially one of them, I've seen him work. But that's just where I'm at with that.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes, I took the liberty this weekend of talking to a lot of people, and had a lot of teachers, a lot of principals, a lot of people in the central office give me a call and give me their take on it. It's real easy to look at paper and read paper, but when you actually have to work with someone, it's a little bit different. So I took their suggestions to heart more than probably just about anything. Also, I recall one of the candidates interviewed for the position of Hamilton County Superintendent when it was opened up with Dr. Johnson, and they did not even get a second interview. A position was made for that person to come on board in a position that we had never had before, which I found to be a little bit troubling myself, but it didn't bother the rest of the board, so therefore it is what it is. But like I say, I put a lot more stock in the people who have to work with them, because it's easy for us to come to board meetings once a month or a couple of times a month, or depending on what's going on, 3 or 4 or 5 times a month, and just to see these people, but the people that deal with them every day. And I will tell you, one of the candidates, I didn't get any good feedback at all. And maybe it was just the people that chose to reach out to me or whatever, but I intend to back Zach Brown because I know the teachers who have worked with him and the people in this central office who, the teachers who worked for him and the people in central office who worked with him. I didn't get any bad recommendations at all from him, and I think he will continue us on the same trajectory we're on. So I'm just telling you, that's the feedback that I received, and even up into today, people calling me. I mean, it's hard to even work today at the shop. I know some people call me, and I say, I have to call you back. My phone, both phones were ringing, my cell phone and my shop phone. And so, and then plus getting texts and Facebook messages and email. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm looking for someone that, like I say, people have worked with in Hamilton County for years, and I have a lot of respect for him, and that's what I plan to vote.
Mrs. Hill.
Thank you, Chair. Without question, we've got three great individuals here, Dr. Zach Brown, Dr. John Tharp, and Dr. Nakia Towns Edwards. Something that has helped me sleep well at night over the last 3 years as I've served on this board is knowing that we had Nakia in our number 2 position. I've always sort of thought, well, if something went really terribly wrong or Dr. Johnson was out with COVID for, 2 months, praise the Lord, we have Dr. Towns Edwards on our team. I have been just hugely impressed with the vision that she has brought to our district. My impression has always been that she and Dr. Johnson were a very strong team, and therefore I am confident that the rigorous change that Dr. Johnson brought to our district is something that Nakia is most well versed in and prepared to continue to implement as we head into this new school year. Also, just before the meeting, Tucker reminded me that we have $90 million in ESSER 3 money that has yet to be budgeted, which adds that much more importance of the knowledge of this individual and their ability to get results. And what I've seen is that Dr. Towns Edwards has been able to get the results. I will say, Rhonda, there have been times when I've been in meetings with my principals, and I've heard a little, maybe not just with our principals, but with some teachers and things, a little bit of grumbling sometimes, honestly, about Dr. Towns Edwards. But what I recognized, at least in the situations where I was involved, was that Dr. Towns Edwards was doing her job. She's kind of being the heavy so that Dr. Johnson could be the nice guy. And there's often that partnership that goes with having, Dr. Johnson could come in and be the one to really be that listening ear and the pat on the back, and I hear you, and he did hear you. And Nakia heard you too, but Nakia was ultimately the one that had to say, this is the new staffing model that's going to get people more equitable staffing for their schools. This is the new way we're going to be doing Title I allotment so that we make sure that our learners who need this resource the most have access to it. And then also, as I considered the 3 candidates that we have, it occurred to me that Dr. Towns Edwards has consistently been given more and more responsibility in Dr. Johnson's administration because she earned that level of trust time after time with each new initiative that she implemented on behalf of Dr. Johnson, whereas our other 2 candidates have actually had reduced responsibility. So I am not as convinced, or I am not convinced or comfortable that we could anticipate a strong growth trajectory moving into next year with one of the other candidates. So Dr. Nakia Towns Edwards will receive my vote tonight.
Mrs. Thurman, were you? Okay.
Oh.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. McClendon.
Yeah, I do want to start by thanking our 3 candidates. I think, as most of everyone on the board, we've thought about it this weekend and today when we got the candidates. Kind of what our role or what my role as a board member is in this, and it really comes down to making sure that this district doesn't see any road bumps, is effective, and someone that can jump into that immediately. As Ms. Hill said, Talking about facilities today with Dr. Johnson, we have $90 million of ESSER funds that need to be budgeted. We're opening a school year. And so I think in this position, it's not someone that can be coached up or trained up in a month or two. This is someone that has to keep the ground running, or the school system running. And at the end of the day, when Dr. Johnson's out, he's on vacation, or he's doing something to promote the board or the school system, Dr. Towns Edwards is the person that's in that position and takes those phone calls when he's out. So I'll be going with Dr. Towns Edwards. I just think the most efficient thing for this district right now, and so we don't have any road bumps and we can start the school year off and continue it well, is to just put up the second person in charge.
Mrs. Thurman.
Okay, one more thing I meant to say. Yes, I know that Ms. Towns, I think her name's just Ms. Towns now, correct? Ms. Towns, or Dr. Towns, has, I think she has applied for at least 3-4 superintendent jobs outside of Hamilton County in this past, year or two. And that tells me that she really doesn't have any allegiance to Hamilton County. That if she had gotten a job, she would have been gone. The other two candidates, I don't think, plan to go anywhere. And that's what I'm looking for, someone that's not just here to wait to see the biggest and best next thing that comes along, but that wants to be in Hamilton County, who is a Hamilton County citizen and does not plan on leaving. That's the kind of thing that I look for. I look for loyalty. Like I say, she has tried her best to get out of Hamilton County every chance she got, so I'm also taking that into consideration.
Mrs. Jones.
So I thought we were talking about making a decision and not, I don't know a nice way to say this, but I thought we were making a decision about a leader and not trying to defame or demean someone's character. And I'm saying that because, and I'm only saying that because we do have another candidate who is not from Hamilton County, came to Hamilton County from another district, was superintendent in another district in another part of the country. So you can't, I think we have to, we just can't get into that because that's not, I don't know. I've never, this is just not the space when we're making decisions to keep on the momentum for the trajectory that we have been on with our schools. And I think we've come a long way because we even have people that are trying to be appointed to our school board who initially did not care for our school board or did not care for our school system, but now they want to be appointed or they're running for election because whether they agree with everything that we do, whether they agree with everything that happens in Hamilton County, I'm looking at somebody in the audience today who I know probably had different views, but now has a different view. And so I think we have to be careful. Are we trying to keep ourselves on that trajectory, or are we going to get caught up in all this other stuff? And I've left board meeting the past 4 months with such a heavy heart. With such a heavy heart. Because this is not what I signed up for. I signed up to advocate for children and their education. And I know I wear a different burden sometimes, and I'm okay with that because I know this is where I'm supposed to be. But this is not what we're supposed to be doing. And I don't think it needs to get to the point where we're pitting people that work together against each other and not intentionally. So let me say this. Let me make this disclaimer. I am not trying to go back and forth and argue. I'm not pointing a specific person out. Let's just make that clear. I'm just saying we have to be thoughtful and mindful of that because we are examples for kids. We are examples for people in our community, and we do not want to display certain behaviors. We just don't. And so no matter who gets into this interim position, I just want us to make sure that we're staying focused. And I'm saying us, including me as one of the 9 people up here, right? Or 8. Right, you're right. And that's a whole nother discussion, because I just had that discussion with Mr. Papu. I just had this discussion with him. And so you're right, it's 8 of us, and that's a whole different discussion. We'll get to that another day. But I'm just saying, I think we have to be careful and mindful of that, because this is becoming the wrong type of work, and that's not what it's supposed to be.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Perez.
So, kind of to that point, I want to publicly thank all 3 candidates. I said on Thursday, I'm all for transparency. It hurts me that unfortunately some of these people who've done nothing but serve their community have to put themselves to public scrutiny at this moment, right? Versus continuing to serve their community, but that's part of the game. So I thank them, all 3 of them, because they love this district so much that they are willing to put themselves to public scrutiny in this regard. Dr. Brown, I've had the privilege of knowing for many years, is an incredible man of character, a man who has served in multiple regards and throughout the county, and has always done what is asked of him and moves on and continues doing that which is asked of him. Dr. Tharp, I've gotten to know in the last year as he is a principal in my district and has done an incredible job in that school, and whatever the outcome, I'm very thankful for his impact in that school. I was very impressed. I had no idea that he already served as superintendent at one point, and the fact that he would be willing to throw his name into me, it's impressive in many ways, just because I can't imagine somebody wanting to continue in that role. And Dr. Towns, or Towns Edwards, as we have seen here, I think has also done an incredible job in the toughest year. And we have to choose, and I think the biggest problem we could have as a community is having to choose from amazing candidates. Like, what a great problem to have. It hurts me because, like everything, we don't want there to be division before the fact or after the fact. But the fact is, we have been placed here to choose. This hasn't been easy as I process, and I'm still looking at the names. But anyways, I just want to thank all 3 candidates for throwing their names in, and I want each of the candidates, whoever ends up as the chosen interim board member, to know, interim superintendent, to know that during the time that they're interim, they will have my full support as a board member. And then I do want the other candidates to know that I would hope that they would consider the long-term opportunity as we move forward. The person in this role will not be considered for the long term from me now. We've said that at the beginning, and I want to, at least I will honor that down the road. I do, as I process this, actually that was one of my questions was, or is this a person I want to consider down the road? You know, and is it, because this is a short season, and we don't know how short, I asked that, it can be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or 13 months, is that the number that somebody threw at me before? So because we don't know the season that it will be, it may be a very short season, it may be a longer season, and so it's a very tough position, because how much can you set up a vision and fulfill that vision when you may have to move on in 30 or 60 days. And so I am obviously, I consider it a very important decision, a a very crucial decision. Ms. Thurman, I'm actually very thankful for you bringing up the District 9 issue. I think that's a huge issue, and I, in my head, have a lot of trouble reconciling that issue because we're where we're at, and we don't have a District 9 representative. But I wish I had an answer. It's very hard to reconcile. So anyways, as I make my decision, I do want to elevate in gratitude every one of the candidates who were willing to expose themselves. And it's only the beginning. Whoever's there in that role will have to deal with that public scrutiny continuously, again, for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or 13 months, however long it will be. But I just want to thank you. And I'm very impressed. I was very impressed with resumes and backgrounds. And that's a good problem to have. To have 3 people who are already in our district who are as qualified as the people who chose to step up for this opportunity, to me, says a lot about our district.
All right, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chairman, as I look at this ballot, and I look down here at the bottom, and I had to chuckle a little bit because whoever did this is kin to Joe Smith. Is that you, Scott? And just so everybody know what
Be
we're
the gentleman
talking
and
about.
take responsibility, Scott.
Down at the bottom of our ballot, it says board member signature, but board is spelled B-A-O-R-D. So, Scott, you and I went to the same school, I guess. Miss Sherry, you. I don't know if I've learned anything, listening to everybody. Man, I don't like this. I don't like this. We've got 44,000 young people depending on decisions we make, and I don't like it. I'm told, and I'll stand to be corrected, Rhonda's probably in a position to know this a whole lot better than probably any of us, but back before the merger occurred, Rhonda, and the city system at that time had a superintendent, and I wouldn't know his name. I'm sure you go back in archives and find it easily, but
Reynolds.
okay, resigned much like unexpectedly, surprisingly, from what I've been told. And so I'm just kind of speaking from the hip here, so you're not going to hurt my feelings if somebody says, Joe, shut up. But I was also told that during that time, that season, that the city system appointed a committee of 3 or 2 or 3 to serve as the interim superintendent. And that system worked well. And so I looked across the state and made a call or 2 to the state and found out that that's been done in other districts. And I don't even know why I throw that out there, but it might be worth a conversation. You got 3 good candidates here, and I'm conflicted a little bit. I want our system to carry on with without interruption, and I wish we could just go ahead and hire a superintendent. Is what I really wish.
Amen.
And not even have to go through all this. But I know it's necessary, and I don't like being in this position. But I guess that's what we're elected to do. That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Well, I'll say real quick before we vote, I am thankful that we got 3 quality candidates here. I can just speak from my first go around with this that I didn't feel that way then. So I'm thankful of the team that's been assembled. I'm thankful for the work that's been done. I'm as many others here. As a board member, I'm just thankful that we're in a better place than we were. So that gives me hope. And I want to thank all three, again, candidates for being willing to do this, because at the end of the day, when you show interest in something like this, you're sticking your neck out. And anytime you stick your neck out, the chance to get your head lopped off, right? And none of us like to do that. None of us like to be in that position. So I'm thankful for hearts that want to serve. I'm thankful for folks that, like I said, are willing to stick their neck in and do a job that maybe is not always that desirable a job in the interim. So I did want to publicly say that. Thank you for being willing to do that. All right, so if we don't have any other discussion or question, we will begin with our vote. If you would, you can just place an X or a check or however you want to put your mark beside your two individuals, and we will allow Mr. Bennett or Ms. Ford to come collect those. On each side.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Thurman votes for Zach Brown. Ms. Jones votes for Zach Brown and Nakia Towns. I can't read this board member's signature.
Is that Tucker? Is that you? Or is that you, Marco?
Whoever corrected Ms.
Is that you? It's Marco.
corrected the spelling. So, Mr. Perez votes for Zach Brown and Nakia Towns. Tucker votes for, Mr. McClendon votes for Nakia Towns. Jenny Hill votes for Nakia Towns. Joe Smith votes for Zach Brown and Nakia Towns. Tiffany Robinson votes for Nakia Towns. And the chair votes for Zach Brown and Nakia Towns.
All right, so board members, if you would, between Dr. Brown and Dr. Towns, would you please on your next ballot mark your vote?
Mr. Chairman, on the next round, Ms. Thurman votes for Zach Brown. Ms. Jones votes for Dr. Towns. Joe Wingate votes for Zach Brown. Mr. McClendon votes for Nakia Towns. Tiffany Robinson votes for Nakia Towns. Ms. Hill votes for Nakia Towns. Joe Smith votes for Zach Brown. And Mr. Perez votes for Nakia Towns. By my tally, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Towns has 5 votes and Dr. Brown has 3.
Okay. All right, again, thank you to all those candidates. And Dr. Towns, we will look forward to working with you, Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Chairman, I think it might be appropriate for us to have a formal vote to retain Dr. Towns.
A yes or no?
And also a question, is it the intention of the board to keep her compensation where it is, or does the board anticipate a change of compensation given the change of duties? That's the pleasure of the board, but it's something we need to think about.
All right, so we need to handle, the first item would be, what, a vote of affirmation?
It would depend on, maybe we could do it all at one time. I don't know. It's up to the board. It's a pleasure of the board.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mrs. Robinson.
Her position as interim would begin August 18th, is that correct? Okay. So any type of compensation change would start August 18th, correct? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And there's nothing in policy that requires it. The board did that with for Dr. Kelly, recognizing that there was a substantial change in duties for him. The board could go either way in this. Since she is currently deputy superintendent, you could argue that there's not a substantial change in duties. It's the pleasure of the board. It's a matter of what the board thinks is appropriate under the circumstances.
Go ahead. To simplify matters, I would prefer, if we need to have a vote of affirmation of this tally, I would prefer for us to go ahead and vote to affirm what we've done here, and then we can talk about that matter if we need to.
Okay, the motion that we had on the floor, what was that motion? Because we had a motion
there
and
is
then we
one.
went into discussion.
There was not a motion.
Okay.
Mr. Bennett just made that point of procedure, so.
Okay.
So, do we have a motion to affirm the vote that was just taken?
So moved.
Second.
What, to affirm the vote that we, what does this mean?
It's
It just says the board voted that way, or is that the way we agree with,
a
or
motion to
what?
hire Dr. Towns as the interim superintendent. Effectively, that's what we're talking about.
Go ahead, Mrs. Ford.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mr. Perez, Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
No.
Chairman Wingate.
No. All right. Now, we can discuss that. Anybody have a comment about compensation? Mr. Bennett, would you like to give any more background to that? Again, I think, or maybe Mrs. Thurman can, or Mrs. Jones, who was here the last time an interim was appointed, kind of how that went.
The way that it went last time was because there was a substantial change in duties between what Dr. Kelly was doing and what we were anticipating for him to do. And because, and this is a key piece, because we were anticipating probably a year-long process between retaining the firm and then conducting a search, and because we're looking at budgets, really trying to put some meat on the bones of an early developed strategic plan, the board decided to go ahead and adjust Dr. Kelly's compensation, I believe up to what Mr. Smith had been making as superintendent. There was a significant pay differential. And so because there was a change of duties and because it was anticipated that he would be doing superintendent work for a good period of time, the board decided it was appropriate to adjust his compensation. The board may feel differently now, but it's the sort of thing where a month or two from now, you might wonder why we didn't talk about it, so I thought we should probably talk about it now.
Go ahead, Mrs. Stone.
Okay, I think it's important to note that Dr. Kelly was, I forget exactly what his title was, but he did something with
It was over testing. and
testing, I started
accountability.
saying with accountability and all that kind of thing, okay. So it was a completely different role for him, and a completely different, I mean, huge pay gap there as well. What does Dr. Towns make now? That would be important to know. How much of a difference is there? Because I know Dr. Johnson, his first contract was $197.5, I think. What is her salary at this point?
I'm not sure.
I don't know, but I'm confident the pay difference is substantial.
I'm with Ms. Thurman on that. I would like to know, obviously, what she makes, and then, as best we could, maybe equate what the difference in duties would be. Because I do agree on that I believe there was a big jump in just duty and responsibility. So, I don't know how you quantify that, but as close as we could, I'd like to maybe be able to figure a little bit of that out.
Because Dr. Johnson was given the pay increase for the strides that he had made and all, and that's why he got that, and so that would not be factored into her salary. But I think we need to know what she makes now and the difference in that and the $197.5 or whatever it was that started out.
And Mr. Chairman, I've raised the issue now, but it's not necessary to resolve the question now because she'll have a month-to-month contract. I'll prepare that contract and I'll have it circulated to the board for your review before the end of the business week. And obviously you won't have to vote on it for some weeks. So we have time, but I simply wanted to raise the issue so that if the press asks you that down the road, you can say that you've at least heard the question.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Scott. And I also appreciate you bringing up the topic because I think it's important and hadn't even occurred to me that could be a discussion tonight. I would prefer to table this discussion so we can get more information and think that it's appropriate that our board chair work on this topic alongside you to determine the contract terms and what that needs to look like. I don't feel like we have enough information on top of that. That's the same process that takes place whenever a superintendent is selected. There's some form of a negotiation contract for both parties, or negotiation of the contract for both parties.
Very well.
All right. Go
Can I
ahead,
ask
Mrs.
what our
Thurman.
next step is, Joe, from here? About moving toward hiring a permanent superintendent?
Well,
What's our next step?
What we'll do is, if there's no more discussion or question about the action that we've just taken, then we will we'll officially adjourn this, right? Because it's a special call. We can take just a minute to catch our breath here, and then our work session can follow, and then we can have those discussions. All right. Any other question or discussion about this item? All right. We'll take a very short recess. We're adjourned. All right, so if you guys are ready, we'll go ahead and start the discussion. I just want to, for a point of clarity, and I'm glad that Mr. Bennett mentioned this earlier today, but this is obviously just discussion time, no action going on here tonight. We can start fleshing some of this stuff out. Thankfully, or maybe not so thankfully, we've got this process is somewhat fresh. So as we begin to talk about next steps, so the two things that are on my mind right now, and we don't have to start with these. I'm just going to throw these out there, and you guys feel free to jump in here as you're ready, or just kind of timeline first of all, and then also who we may want to, if we want to, partner with us in this search. So those are the kinds of things I'm thinking about. I know we've referenced already the length of the previous search, and also know that there were some events that took place in those 13 months that precipitated a longer search than probably should have been. Whether it should have been 13 months or not is up for debate, but it definitely was longer than it needed to be or could have been otherwise. So anyway, those things are on my mind. If you've got some other things that you'd like to talk about, we can. But I'll just open the floor up. Mr. Perez.
So I was being serious in how impressed I was with the internal candidates that we had, and the opportunity to see some of their backgrounds. I think there is a value to looking at internal candidates before we spread it all over. We need to publish it, and we'll get people out there. But I'm going to hiring a firm. I'd hate to do this big, huge, expensive ordeal and end up with the candidates that we already know are high-quality candidates within our district. I also think, I think there's a time that you need people from the outside to bring new ideas and fresh ideas, and there's a time that you need to continue what we're doing. I think we're in a time to continue what we're doing. Personally, and then I also think there's an important pronouncement, perhaps, that we are investing in our people, and that there is an opportunity for them to grow within our own boundaries. I still think, for the public's sake, we need to show that we've done everything exhaustively, both to give them a sense of assurance, but also so that our candidate knows that we did select them very carefully and didn't just decide here's the next one. So anyway, so for me, I don't want to be Marco Perez, One Boys, don't want to be spending a lot of money on a firm. I would actually rather use some of that potential expense to help support the candidate when they come in giving them, whether it's training, coaching, capacity building, so that they are more successful in that role down the road. So that's my opinion, but I'm new. So.
All right. Anyone else? Mrs. Thurman, go ahead.
I think I agree with Marco on this.
Can I?
Yes,
Can
would
we
you
write
write
that down? Can we? Is
Yeah,
that
write
on
that
record?
down.
This isn't
It's
on
a-
record, is it?
Oh, it's all recorded, Marco.
It's all recorded.
Recorded for posterity.
But I do. I think that we need to look internally because somebody else is going to come in and they're going to, I'll just use a school, for instance. I've seen some schools run like a well-oiled machine and then get a new principal in that thinks they have to come in and start from ground zero and start all over again. And before you know it, the whole thing is just disaster. And so I think, especially at the start of school, and we do not want to be right in the middle of, trying to work on a train while it's going down the track. I think these teachers need some stability, and people in the central office need stability. We just don't need to be changing a lot of things. I think we just need somebody to keep us on the track around. I think you do that with internal candidates. I think you're right. Plus, the money is another factor. I don't think we need to be spending out a lot of money for a search firm right now.
Go ahead, Mr. McClendon.
Yeah, I think that the two things, Chairman, that you brought up, timeline and then kind of the what do we do through search or no search. I think the most critical thing for me is timeline and making sure it's a swift but effective search. And I think that search starts with internal candidates. I do not want a 10-month, 8-month search. You know, I think something done this semester for consistency's sake for the school system to keep the momentum going is something that is probably number one top priority in my mind. And then two, I think both to Ms. Thurman and Mr. Perez's points is cost and effectiveness of a search and looking at partners that are you know, not what this board spent last time on a search, but that cast a wide net or a regional net or some sort, just so we can see the type of candidates that are out there, but that it's a swift and effective search are kind of my two things.
Mrs. Hill.
Thank you, Chair. I could go either way with regard to using a search firm or not. The thing that is most important to me is that we as a board use this as an opportunity to be proactive about where we want this district to go, not just reactive, and feel a need to fill a seat quickly without taking the steps that we should. So I'd very much like to have some time set apart where we could talk about where we want to be in 5 years. You know, our strategic plan goes through 2023. Hopefully our superintendent, that whoever we hire, will be here longer than that, and will be someone, I would like to see someone who has a drive to be better than we are, because we all know that our strategic plan goals are aggressive, but they are by no means where we want to stop. That we have, especially as it relates to our academic goals, we have big plans for our students. So, however the timeline and the partner element shakes out, I think it's really important that we take a beat as a board and look hard at what kind of qualities and capabilities we want in our next superintendent, because what we needed when we hired Dr. Johnson is possibly different than what we need now. He has, as I mentioned so many times, y'all are probably tired of it, he's elevated our expectations for excellence. And this next leader comes in at that level. I mean, I don't want to talk to anybody that doesn't get that, right? And so what else do we want? And I would love to hear from my colleagues on the board, perhaps at a separate kind of roundtable session. Just talk, like those Post-it notes that you guys did, I was noticing, not only Brian always showed those to us, and I was noticing how, the big circle was, we become the fastest improving school district in the state of Tennessee. That was me. That was yours. Well, I noticed as we were looking at the year in review on Thursday, there were at least 3 other items that you all had listed that also had been achieved. And that, to me, that's just tremendous. And I think for us as a board to have that time, and once we have our District 9 representative on the board, to get together and talk through that on behalf of the people of Hamilton County would be really useful.
Mr. Smith.
It just kind of blows my mind in Hamilton County that every time we have we have a position that comes open for an important high-profile position, that we have to go do a national search. And I think of things like the Chamber and River City. Most recently, right on my heartstrings, the Metropolitan YMCA. And you got to go all over the nation to find somebody. So does that mean in Hamilton County we don't do a good job of training people? Is that what that means? I don't know. But I like what I'm hearing about let's look right under our nose, because that person may already be here. I'm not so sure he isn't. Or she. whatever. But we need to look right under our nose. And I can just tell you, you know, we spent a lot of money last time, a lot of money and a lot of time that I think was unnecessary. And we owe the public a good job to identify the right person, and I get that. But I think our state board, if I'm not mistaken, they'll even help us to locate a superintendent. So, but let's absolutely look here. I guess we don't do a good job in Hamilton County of raising up people, because all these organizations have to go over the world to find somebody. So that bothers me about Hamilton County.
I'll just add to that, but that's not to this. Thank you for saying that, because what it also does is it implies to many of our leaders that if they want to grow, they have to leave. And that really concerns me too. We have opportunity to grow here. And I think there's times and seasons, but anyways, that's besides the subject. Thank you for saying that.
Ms. Thurman.
Yes, I just want to echo what Joe said, and Marco's correct. A lot of the people that have really put their heart and soul into this school system, if they don't see any hope of advancing, they will go other places, and that's what has happened to us a lot of times. Plus, we do a lot of professional development, leadership classes and all, and I think we need to get something out of that. We spend a lot of time and a lot of money doing professional development and leadership, so I think we do need to look at here in Hamilton County first.
I will say, go ahead, Mrs. Jones.
So is it possible, well, I don't know, just something to think about, because I do also agree that we have a lot of internal candidates and leaders right here in Hamilton County Schools. So if we go that track, I mean, we could go the internal candidate track, right? And if nothing happens there, which probably is not going to happen, but if nothing happens there, then we can come back and discuss going another route, or will we set that now, like, say, because it sounds like everybody pretty much wants to consider looking at internal candidates first. So if we did that, would our HR, well, let me ask that, would our HR do that, or would TSBA, like, who does that for us?
Well, that obviously all that would be at the discretion of the board. I think what you'd have to think about, and it's just me thinking off the top of my head, Mr. Bennett, you help me out here, but I think when you talk about your own HR department, internal candidates, and I'm just trying to think, is that a conflict of interest there when we, yeah. So yeah, but I hear what you're saying, Chris. Again, it's at the discretion of this board to operate. I think that's what I tried to mention at our board meeting on Thursday night. You know, you guys know this. We have policy and we have process, and that's what guides this board. And so, and this board also has a discretion to amend or change, you know, processes and policy. So, you know, that's just kind of where we are. I was going to say, I agree with the thoughts here tonight. I remember 4 years ago, I was one who was new on the board, and I absolutely wanted to see what was out there, because, and I'll give you some examples. I found it interesting that at times, being in the community where I live and where I've grown up in, and about a fourth generation family member in my district that I represent, that there were a couple times folks would come up and say, I don't understand why we have this national search. You know, we surely there's a local candidate. And at the time, I would say, well, you know one? And it got real quiet. And I wasn't trying to be ugly. It's just there were no local candidates applying. And the folks that wanted to see a local candidate, and I'd love to see a local candidate, but nobody was offering anybody up. You know, there weren't any names that just immediately came to mind. I'm thankful, as I've said before. I think we're in a much better place in a different space, and I have no doubt that I could be at those same places, and folks could come up and say, "Hey, why don't we have an internal candidate?" And I say, "Well, you got a name," and I bet I'd get a couple, 3 names. So I'm thankful for that. So a couple things to consider here when we talk about timelines, okay? And again, timeline is going to be relevant to the type of search that we decide to do, and those are all things that we're kicking around right now. But there is one timeline that will guide us, and that will be the appointment of a District 9 representative, right? So my understanding is that a District 9 school board member will be voted on or appointed on August the 4th. Is that correct? And then my other question or comment would be, and you guys can help me with this, or maybe Mr. Smith, you can help me with this. So, or I guess Mr. Smith, because you went this route at one time. Was there an immediate appointment or a swearing in that day of the appointment? Okay. So we'll have an official school board member on the 4th, right? Go ahead, Ms. Stein.
I was told that there may be a couple of commissioners absent from that meeting, so hopefully
Oh,
they
really?
can get one that will get 5 votes. Just wanted to
Okay.
let you know that.
Well, that's not a shock. I mean, that's not a surprise.
So,
That nothing's easy in this job.
So you might want to talk to the commission chair to
Okay.
to talk about
Okay.
that.
So yes. So tentatively, we would have one, and then our first agenda session would be the 16th. So if you guys got your calendars, I mean, if you want to take a quick look at this. So what we're looking at is a swearing in, which would be possibly 2 weeks from Wednesday, right? And then that new board member's first meeting would then be what, 11 days later? Yep. So pretty quick, and I'm thankful for that. But they would be in attendance at the August 16th agenda session. And as you all know, because of the nature of the work that we're doing, work sessions are probably now back in order again, more so than they have been. So, we could, we're going to be obviously talking that business the 16th, and then a board meeting on the 19th. So those are things those 3 dates in particular to think about as we look at kind of timelines and how we want to start to proceed. So what I'm saying is, we're not going to have any kind of special call or anything before that, right? So there won't be any action taken necessarily before any of those meetings where the District 9 representative would be present. So just kind of be thinking about that as we talk through what we want to do and how we want to do it. And go ahead, Mr. Smith.
You could, if the District 9 representative is seated on the 4th, and that is their practice. I mean, if they vote, they'll swear them in right then. So that would be almost 2 weeks before our next get-together, wouldn't it?
It would, not quite, but yes.
Perhaps you might want to have a call meeting for the 9 of us just to talk about protocol,
Yeah.
and rather than waiting that additional 2 weeks, because I just, every day's valuable.
Yeah.
Every day.
Well, so the next week would be, and again, just you guys take a look at this. The next week would be the week of that Monday, the 9th, right? And so that's a full week there. So the board member would become official on Wednesday, the 4th. You got Thursday, Friday, and then the next Monday, the week of the 9th, a full week there before our next scheduled 2 meetings.
I'd like to see us do something that week of the 9th.
Okay.
Yeah, given that they do get their work done on the 4th, it
Right.
could be. Rhonda just pointed out there's only going to be 7 of them that day. They may not be able to count the 5.
That's what I was
but-
told, but I don't know.
Yeah, somebody told me that too, but
Okay.
And that means it will be the 11th. If it didn't happen on the 4th, it wouldn't happen again until the 11th, right? The next projected date.
That's
would be
right.
August
Yeah.
11th. Okay.
So shall we do
So
it?
should we just wait after the 11th, just in case that's the case?
Just do the 12th. Do the 12th. Is your kind of safe date.
I'm open to whatever. I'm open to whatever.
I'd like to see that. Again, Mr. Chairman, I think that every day's valuable.
Okay,
in
so
this
Mr.
process.
Smith, that week of the 9th, are you open to the 12th, which again would be?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's Thursday the 12th.
Absolutely.
All right. Anybody else got a thought or a comment on that? So go ahead, Mrs. Hill.
So at that meeting, might it be possible for us to configure the room with a table more like what we had, when we've had meetings with the commission, where we're kind of together and we talk about what our, what we're looking for
Sure.
in this job.
Sure.
I think that could be really helpful.
So,
I'm
Mrs.
okay with that as long as we keep the cut.
Yeah. So that's going in the job description. That's going in the job description, right? Mike's with identifying lights. So Mrs. Ford, do you want to go ahead and jot that down? Let's look at Thursday, the 12th.
What time?
Well, we kind of standard meeting time is 5:30, but you all, if somebody's got an issue with that, feel free to speak. So let's look for 5:30, and then we can catch up, circle back with Mrs. Robinson, and I'd like to think the new member would do whatever they needed to do to be there by the 12th, unless there's something that's previously scheduled, obviously they can't get out of. So, okay. Well, those were like I said, those were the couple of things that I wanted to get out there and talk about. I guess between now and then, we can begin to think about those things, maybe get a little bit firmer thoughts around what we'd like to see, and then that would also give Mr. Bennett and me time to continue this work of securing interim status.
Thank you, Joe.
Well, thank you all. I think Mr. Smith said it. I know you all kind of feel this way. It is what it is, and we just are where we are, and it's part of it. And I'm thankful to sit in a position to have an opportunity to impact children and families, and I'm thankful for you guys and the work that has been done. The vision and just kind of the leveraging of our last employee. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean for him to understand what's important to us and where we want to see this district go and see the value that it brings to our county. And Jenny, thanks for bringing that up. But it is neat to go back and look at those things that were kind of hammered out in a work session 4 years ago and see some of those things come to fruition. And that stuff doesn't happen by accident. And so it's intentional work, and it's been intention of our board and also the school system and the teachers who are in those rooms every day who have come to work and soldiered into the work and bought in, and it's just awesome to see. So I'm thankful to be in a position to be able to, like I said, add value to lives of folks in our hometown. So, all right, anything else, Mrs. Jones? All right, so then what we've got there is a chance to get together on the 12th. So that's going to give us time to hopefully get a District 9 rep and get together in this room. And like I said, we'll see about trying to get the room set up, and then also Mr. Bennett and I will get on that pretty quickly. And then and listen, I'm open to ideas again around that. When we start talking about the interim's contract again, that's going to be one area where I think I'm going to struggle a little bit is, how do we quantify, the additional duties, and then even quantify what's that worth? And so, not to shortchange anyone, just to, make sure that we treating everybody fairly. So, all right, anything else? All right.